Welcome, dear learners, to the Module 8 on the topic agricultural labor. In this module, we will discuss about the concept of agricultural labor. We will identify and discuss the key characteristics of agricultural laborers, and also we will discuss about the different types based on their working conditions and land ownership status of agricultural laborers. Dear learners, we all know agriculture is the backbone of many economies, particularly in developing countries, providing employment to millions of people. Understanding agricultural labor is very crucial as it highlights the challenges and socio-economic conditions of a significant workforce. Agricultural laborers plays a very vital and important role in ensuring food security, yet they often face precarious working conditions. So in this module, dear learners, we will explore the meaning, characteristics and the types of agricultural labors. Let's begin by outlining what we aim to achieve from this video session. By the end of this video session, dear learners, you will be able to define and explain the concept of agricultural labor. You will be able to identify and describe the key characteristics of agricultural laborers. You will be also able to classify agricultural laborers into different types based on their working conditions and land ownership status. Now let us begin the session with the concept of agricultural laborers. So one of the important factors of production is labor. According to Professor Marshall, labor is any exertion of mind or body undertaken partly or wholly with a view to some good, other than the pleasure derived directly from the work. In economics, labor indicates both physical and mental work undertaken for earning livelihood. Therefore, labor is regarded as an active factor of production. Labor can be classified in many forms such as physical labor, mental labor, skilled labor, unskilled labor, and many more. But one of the famous type of labor is agricultural labor, which is mainly seen in most of the developing countries. In simple words, agricultural laborers are those persons who are engaged in agricultural sector. Basically, those persons who work on the land of others on wages for the major part of the year and earn a major portion of their income as a payment in the form of wages for works performed on the agricultural farms owned by the others are known as agricultural laborers. According to the first Agricultural Labor Inquiry Committee of 1950-51, those who work for 50% or more days on the payment of wages were termed as agricultural workers or as agricultural laborers. However, the second Agricultural Labor Inquiry Committee of 1956-57 gave an extended version and regarded those persons as agricultural laborers who work in agriculture as well as in allied activities such as horticulture or animal husbandry or fisheries or dairy, etc. So we have to define agricultural labor separately from industrial labor, as the definition of the industrial labor cannot be applied to them. One of the reasons for these is that it is not possible to make distinction among agricultural laborers as unskilled, semi-skilled and skilled laborers like industrial laborers. So dear learners, it is rather very difficult to define the term agricultural labor in precise terms. However, it will be useful to refer to some of the attempts made by experts in this connection. So the first agricultural, as I have already discussed, the first agricultural labor inquiry committee of 1950-51 defined these as those people who are engaged in raising crops on payment of wages. Again, the second agricultural labor inquiry committee of 1956-57 enlarged this definition of agricultural labor to include those who are engaged in other agricultural occupations like dairy farming, horticulture, raising of livestock, bees, poultry, etc. According to the National Commission on Labour, an agricultural labourer is one who is basically unskilled and unorganized and has little for its livelihood other than personal labour. Thus, persons whose main source of income is wage employment fall in this category. It consists of two categories. Number one is the landless agricultural labor, and number two is a very small cultivators, those main source of earning due to their small and sub-marginal holding is wage employment. So when we talk about landless labor, which we'll be discussing more in our subsequent slides, so landless labor in turn can be classified into two broad categories, that is permanent labor attached to a cultivating household and casual labor. So the second ground can again be subdivided into three subcategories, that are cultivators, sharecroppers and leaseholders. So the permanent or the attached laborers generally work on annual or seasonal basis, and they work on some sort of contract. Their wage share is determined by custom or tradition. And on the other hand, temporary or casual laborers are engaged only during a break period for work. Their employment is temporary and they are paid at the market rate. They do not attach to any landlord. And in India, agricultural labor refers to physical work done on the fields and farms of others. Agricultural labor is basically unskilled and makes his or her living by the way of compensation of labor in cash or kind. It is largely during the sowing and harvesting seasons that there is an intense demand for labor. So accordingly, it is during these seasons that the workers find employment to generate income for subsistence for their families for the entire year. Instinct to survive blended with a struggle to survive characterizes the way of life of the laborers in Indian agriculture. Let us discuss, dear learners, the distinction it from the farmers. So unlike farmers who own land, agricultural laborers work on others' land for wages, either in cash or kind. Farmers have control over land use, crop selections and farming decisions, while agricultural laborers follows instructions provided by landowners or employers. Farmers may experience profits or losses depending on market conditions, whereas the agricultural laborers receive fixed wages or in-kind payments regardless of agricultural output. In some cases, small and marginal farmers also work as agricultural laborers to supplement their income. Now, dear learners, let us go through some of the historical perspective. So, the evolution of agricultural labor in different economic systems, including feudal, colonial and modern economies. In feudal society, agricultural laborers were often serf or bonded workers bounded to a particular landlord with limited rights. During colonial rule, many agricultural laborers were forced into cash crop production under exploitative conditions and was very insignificant. According to the 1881 census, the number of landless laborers was 7.5 millions, and this margin was increased to 21 millions in 1921, which constituted around 17.4% of the total labor force. So after the number of agricultural labor has increased to 27.5 million, 31.5 million, 47.5 million, 55.5 million and 74.6 million in the year 1951, 1961, 1981 and 1991 respectively. Simultaneously, the percentage of landless workers as a proportion of the rural labor force has increased also from 18% in 1964-65 to 25% in 1981. So due to the increasing size of population, decline of cottage and village industries, growing indebtedness and expansion of capital intensive farming, the number of agricultural labor has been increasing. The transition to modern economies has seen improvements in mechanization and productivity, but has also led to challenges such as rural unemployment, then displacement of traditional laborers. So over a period of time, agricultural labor has become more organized with efforts to secure fair wages, social protection and improved working conditions. So dear learners, we have already gone through the concept of agricultural labor. Now let us discuss the characteristics of agricultural laborers. So agricultural laborers are those persons that we have already discussed who work on the land of others on wages for the major part of the year and earn a major portion of their income as a payment in the form of wages for works performed on the agricultural sector. So here are some of the characteristics that we will be discussing. So first would be agricultural labor includes those workers who are engaged in agriculture as well as in elite activities such as horticulture, animal husbandry, fisheries, dairy, etc. Again, agricultural laborers are mainly seen in the rural areas of our country. Therefore, it is said that agricultural laborers are the most exploited unorganized class in the rural population of a country like India. Agricultural laborers can be categorized as attached laborers, landless laborers, tenants laborers, etc. Again, agricultural laborers are unskilled and unorganized in nature. There are more characteristics that we will be discussing in the slide. You can see that the agricultural jobs are mostly seasonal, leading to periods of unemployment. So, it is of a characteristic that seasonal nature of employment. Then low wages and poverty. Agricultural laborers generally receive lower wages due to lack of unionization and bargaining power. Then lack of job security. Most agricultural laborers work informally without contracts, leading to unemployment insecurity. Again, due to insufficient local employment, many laborers migrate to urban areas or other rural regions in search of work. Again, agricultural employment heavily depends on weather conditions, particularly in monsoon-dependent economies. Again, the absence of medical facilities, education and insurance are for most agriculture workers. So there is a lack of social security and benefits. Again, a high level of indebtedness. So many agricultural laborers rely on moneylenders due to lack of formal credit access. So these are some of the characteristics that we have discussed. Now, dear learners, let us move on to the types of agricultural labor. So agricultural labor in India is broadly classified into two categories, that is landless laborers, then small and marginal farmers as agricultural laborers. So it includes small and marginal farmers with or without economic holdings. So, dear learners, let us discuss first the landless laborers. So, one of the main categories of agricultural laborers is landless laborers. So, landless laborers are those persons who work on the land of other on wages as they do not have their own plot of land. So, landless laborer in turn can be classified into two again broad category, that is permanent laborer attached to cultivating households, then casual laborers. Again, the casual laborers can be divided into three subcategories, that is cultivators, sharecroppers and leaseholders. So, permanent or attached laborers generally work on an annual or seasonal basis, and they work on some sort of contract or agreement. Their wage are fixed by the custom or the tradition. On the other hand, temporary or casual laborers are engaged only during peak periods for work. Their employment is temporary and they are paid at market rate. They are not attached to any landlords. The problem of landless laborers is quite common in India. Therefore, from time to time, the government has taken some measures to solve this problem. So, Bonded Labor System Abolition Act, Land Reform Policy, etc. were mainly introduced to solve the problems of landless laborer. So, these policies we will be discussing in our next video sessions. So, now we will be focusing on the types of laborers only. So, the bonded landless laborers are tied to their master with no freedom to move from one master to the other. So, they are almost like slaves, depend on their masters for their economic and social security. Though bonded laborers has been abolished in India by law, yet many examples of it can be found in the rural areas now in today's times also. Now let us discuss the small and marginal farmers and agricultural laborers. So India is a land of small and marginal farmers. So farming hinges upon subsistence needs of the farming families. However, some of the small and marginal holders fail to earn enough from their tiny holdings. Often, they are to work on others' land to supplement their earnings. So, the small and marginal holders work as agricultural laborers as well. So, small and marginal farmers as agricultural laborers are further divided into two categories. First is the small and marginal farmers without economic holdings working as agricultural laborers, and secondly the small and marginal farmers with economic holdings working as agricultural laborers. So in case of small and marginal farmers, were also called as small and marginal holders without economic holdings or holdings which are economically not viable for cultivation, it is economic compulsion that forces them to work as agricultural laborers. But in case of small and marginal holders with economic holdings, it is basically the idea of supplementing family income, that some members of the family work as agricultural laborers. So those who work on the farm of others obviously do not find gainful employment on their own farms. The first Agricultural Labour Inquiry Committee of 1950-51 categorizes agricultural labour as attached labour. So those labourers who are attached to some other farmer's household on the basis of a written or oral agreement are known as attached labourers. They are also termed as bonded labourers as they are working as serfs or servants. So these workers are not allowed to work in other places. Now let us discuss casual labourers. When labourers are free to work in any farm or any place on the basis of the payment of daily wage, then that type of labour is known as casual labourers. Casual laborers may include different types of labor. For example, in India, casual labor includes small farmers who possesses very little land and consequently have to devote most of their time working on the lands of others as laborers. Then sharecroppers who, while sharing the produce of the land for their work as agricultural laborers. Then landless agricultural laborers who exclusively work for others. Then tenants who work on leased land but work most of the time on the land of others as laborers. So significantly, agricultural laborers can be divided into two main categories, that is landless agricultural laborers and very small cultivators whose main source of earning due to their small and sub-marginal holdings is wage employment. Again, landless laborers may be permanent labor attached to cultivating households or casual laborers. So dear learners, agricultural laborers play an important role in an economy. Basically, those workers who can be termed as agricultural laborers who are mainly engaged in agriculture and elite activities like animal husbandry, dairy, piggery, poultry, farming, etc. And like industrial labor, agricultural labor cannot be classified as unskilled, semi-skilled and skilled laborers. Agricultural laborers can be categorized as attached labor, landless laborers, tenant laborers, etc. that we have already discussed, and they are unskilled and unorganized in nature. The number of agricultural laborers has been increasing from time to time due to the increasing size of population, decline of cottage and village industries, then growing indebtedness and expansion of capital intensive farming. The number of agricultural labor has been increasing. Most of the agricultural laborers do not get a regular basis of work, and some of them remain unemployed and underemployed. For example, laborers do not get permanent work for longer periods. Again, the bonded laborers are not allowed to work in other places and exploited by the landowners, and they have to do a very hard labor under unfavorable conditions. So dear learners, with this we have come to the end of this video. In the next sessions, in the next videos, we will be discussing about the agricultural employment, and also we will discuss about the different policies for agricultural laborers. So till then, take care and keep learning.